Thank you, please be seated. Master Ceremony, Mr. Ward, thank you for your words of introduction. Honourable Gail Tisera, Your Worship, Mr. Anthony Murray, Regional Executive Officer, Mr. Ward, Commander of Region 7, Mr. Dion Moore, representing the Chairman of Region 7, Mr. David Daniels, all other protocols previously established observed. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Est-ce que we answer? Right, very important that we understand that. And you know what? Well, Bartica is part of SCQ. Region 7 is part of SCQ. But say on Pura, we'll accept those answers. You know, I don't want to go through everything that Comrade Gail went through with you just now. She gave you the entire history. Right? From 1899 right up to what is happening now. But you know, making the rounds on social media is a Guyana ID card with the picture of Maduro, and the date of birth is 1899. Do you want Maduro to be a Guyanese? No. It sounds like he wants to be a Guyanese. But we don't want Maduro to be a Guyanese. We want Maduro to understand that as Guyanese, we are united. United in the defense of Guyana. United in letting Maduro and his cronies know that Essequibo belongs to Guyana. Essequibo was always part of Guyana. And I said I will not go through the history. Comrade Gail did a wonderful job. But I can tell you, before there was a Venezuela, before there was a Guyana, all the lands in South America was under the authority of the colonialists. The area that is now Guyana, and in addition to that, going right through to the Orinoco, was under the Dutch government. The area south of that, way down south, was under the Portuguese government, right? And from the Orinoco go back was under the Spanish government. So before there was a country named Venezuela, what is now Guyana, in addition to what was ceded, what was given to them in order to reach an agreement in 1899, was part of Guyana. And if you don't believe that, go and check it for yourself. In arriving at a settlement in 1899, the British government gave up land, gave up a whole portion of land to the east of the Orinoco. And you know, when you look at the history, 4 days after the arbitral award was on the 3rd of October 1899, and 4 days after the arbitral award, Venezuela ambassador, who was the brother of the president, an ambassador named Jose Andrade, and he said this, and I quote, "We were given the exclusive dominion over the Orinoco, which was the principal aim of this arbitration." They wanted domain over the Orinoco, and they got it. We got 83,000 square miles. That's what the British got, and that's what the British handed over to Guyana in 1966. So everything that was bequeathed to us at the time of independence, that is what we defended. And I'm happy to know that today we have representatives from all around Bartica, including our former mayor, Mr. Marshall is here with us. Give out Marshall. Mr. Mayor, thank you for being here with us. Because you being here with us sends a strong message, a message of unity. And in unity there is strength. Stronger together for a better Guyana, right? So if you have one Guyana, and we promoted one Guyana is for all of us. We can't wait when benefits are flowing and then only saying one Guyana. When our survival is challenged, we must also be one Guyana. When our survival is threatened, we must be one Guyana. And even though, they keep saying, but Venezuela got a strong army and we got a small army. We don't have a small army. Our army is 800,000 strong. Think about it. Every Guyanese is a member of our army because every Guyanese must resolve to defend Guyana. Isn't that so? Right? So 800,000 people defending all 83,000 square miles. Isn't that so? Let me hear you. Shout some Maduro can hear you. Guyana belongs to we. It's we own. And Mr. Maduro understands that well. When they had the decision yesterday, and yesterday was another historic day for us in Guyana. And let me read the part of the decision. The order states two things. The first one, pending a final decision in the case, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela shall refrain from taking any action which would modify the situation that currently prevails in the territory in dispute, whereby the Cooperative Republic of Guyana administers and exercises control over the area. The next part, both parties should refrain from actions that make the controversy difficult to resolve. Comrades, this court is telling Maduro to back off. Keep your guns in Venezuela. Keep your soldiers in Venezuela. Feed them because they're hungry. I know that they're hungry because our soldiers at this bank are feeding them right now. Right? They have the guns, but they're asking for food. This is a country that was known as the Pearl of South America. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I was a youngster, second lieutenant of the border, this is a country that many Guyanese left Guyana. Things to get rough in Guyana. Let me admit it, things were rough in Guyana. A lot of Guyanese went to live and work in Venezuela. Right? Their currency was far higher than Guyana currency. When you're on the border, you try to change the Guyana dollars to the bolivars. Right? They used to refuse it. They accept gold. Right? But they don't want to accept Guyana dollars. Right? That is the life I know at Iterimban in the 80s. Some of you weren't even born yet. That's the life I know at Taikan in the 80s. I served on all the borders you could talk about. Mabaruma, Matthews Ridge, Baramita, Imbotero, you call it. And right down to Masikanari, New River. All those places I know. And I know what life was like there. Polar bear was the bear of choice. Somebody mentioned yesterday when we had a similar forum, right? Flour was restricted in Guyana. So flour was white gold. white gold coming from Venezuela, right? Anybody can remember those days? Some of you have gray hair like me, remember, right? Right? When you get a sack of flour and you get the polar bear and the other stuff from Venezuela, because Venezuela was the place to be. This is a country, fast forward to today, this is a country that is really, really going through some hard times today. 7 million Venezuelans are overseas right now, and some 40,000 of them are right here in Guyana, different parts of Guyana. And I understand that more are coming, right? And many of them who are coming, they're telling you that they don't want to go back. Please don't send me back to Venezuela. I want something to eat, I want a place to rest, a shelter, and I want a job. And I recognize that Guyana is growing. Guyana is the fastest growing country in the world today, right? And we have a humanitarian policy. All the Venezuelans are coming to Guyana. Once they respect the laws of Guyana, we allow them to remain in Guyana. We allow them to be integrated in the Guyanese society, right? They can get jobs, the children can enroll in schools. All we want them to do is to follow the laws of Guyana. We're not sending them home, right? And Mr. Maduro knows that. This is a country, is the fastest growing country in the world. We have 11 billion barrels of oil equivalent of gas. Oil that we discover. We haven't quantified the gases yet. 11 billion barrels equivalent of oil. Fastest growing economy. All eyes are on Guyana. You want me to tell you how many billion barrels Venezuela has? Venezuela has 300 billion barrels of proven reserve. The problem is management. The problem is the politics over there. They cannot see the people. They're asking to lift sanctions that they cause to be imposed on themselves, right? So they can get businesses coming in and maybe hopefully the economy could go back. We as a country, we're willing to work with them to improve the situation over there. But we're not giving up no territory to Venezuela. That is final. We're not giving up no territory to Venezuela. No way, Jose. No way, Maduro. No way, Nicolas. Whatever you want to call it. No territory. And you must understand that. You know, this guy and his cronies, they're bent. They're bent on misinforming their own people. And they went so far as to misinterpret the Geneva Agreement of 1966. The Geneva Agreement is clear. The Secretary General of the United Nations will be the one that both parties will talk to, and he will be the one to make the decisions as to how we resolve this controversy. The same Secretary General who took us through a mixed commission, as Comrade Gale mentioned, we had the moratorium, then we had, the good officers process that's run for some 27 years, and then they decide to do a special good officer for 1 year. And the Secretary General tell them plain, if this does not work, I will have to make a decision based on the recommendation. And we recommended that we want this matter to go before the court. And that is in keeping with the Geneva Agreement of 1966. If you want to read the Geneva Agreement, placing the matter before the ICJ is part of the measures that can be decided upon. So when Maduro is telling his people, we don't respect the court, but we want to go back to the Geneva Agreement of 1966. It's either he's confused or he's deliberately trying to confuse the people. And I want to believe two things. One, that I'm being taped here today, and before the night out, somebody in Venezuela will translate it to English. There's one. They'll know what I'm saying. And secondly, the people of Venezuela will listen and make sense from nonsense. Because everything that happened yesterday and before yesterday, from 1966 to now, was done in keeping with the Geneva Agreement of 1966. So the matter before the International Court of Justice, Mr. Maduro, is in keeping with the Geneva Agreement of 1966. It's not different from the Geneva Agreement. We as a people, we are peaceful, and we shall remain peaceful. But we must be ready. We must be resolute. We must be resilient. We must be hardened. And we must work together in unity to defend Guyana at all times. Nobody must not walk with us. Now is the time when we have a wealth, right? We have the oil, and we have the gas, and the revenue coming from it is being utilized to improve the lives and livelihood of all the people of Guyana. Now is the time when the entire world is looking at Guyana. Guyana is open for investment. We want anybody to come and invest. Venezuelans to come and invest, Venezuelan companies to come and invest. They pay their taxes, right? They follow our employment rules and regulations. They employ Guyanese in keeping with our local content legislation. And then they could repatriate their profits. Guyanese in the diaspora are invited to come and invest. And people from all around the world, likewise, are invited to come and invest in Guyana. All eyes are on Guyana now. We don't have a problem with that. Once all eyes are in Guyana for investment in Guyana, we welcome that. What we don't welcome is people who want to take our land, take our territory. Because all of us agree that 83,000 square miles was bequeathed to us at the time of independence, and we have a duty to ourselves, to our children, and to our children's children to ensure that we defend the 83,000 square miles. And at all times, 83,000 square miles must be part of Guyana. Isn't that so? Y'all sound like y'all afraid of Maduro. Huh?
No way. No way.
Don't be afraid of Maduro. Don't be afraid of what he's telling his people. You know what? Venezuela, just like Guyana, is one of some 200 countries in the world. All of us are members of the United Nations. All of us sign on to and is part of the UN Charter. All of us believe in what they call multilateralism. Okay? And all the international laws that you talk about, all of us try as much as possible to abide by those laws. And Venezuela will abide by those laws. Right? And what is going on now is Mr. Maduro and his cronies, like his vice president, Delcy Rodriguez is her name. And I met the foreign minister when I was in Brazil recently. Ivan, you know, right now, the issue is their ego. How to come down from that high chair that they put themselves on, that pedestal. How to come down and accept the ruling of the court. The fact is, they have to come down and they have to accept the ruling of the court because they're just another nation in the world under the UN Charter. They wouldn't want to be deemed a rogue nation. They wouldn't want the rest of the world to see them disregarding international law. More so the highest court in the world, the International Court of Justice. So what is going to happen now, and this has happened already. Last night I went through 3 or 4 versions of the statements emanating from the Venezuelan government as it pertains to yesterday's ruling. And you know what? By the time you reach the third one, and I think there's a fourth one, they reach the point where they're accusing us in Guyana, the most peaceful country in the world. They're accusing us of being the one who wants to be belligerent, who wants to be warlike in this whole thing. We went in a peaceful manner to the court because we recognize that a court ruled 124 years ago, settling the borders between Guyana and Venezuela, and that was a final settlement. The arbitral award of 1899 was a final settlement. And Venezuela, as I read the part here, they accepted it. They celebrated. They got what they wanted, right? And even the American president, in the same year, in December of 1899, there's an American president by the name of McKinley. And McKinley, in the State of the Union address to the American government, mentioned that Venezuela appears to be pleased with the award. You want me to read that? I can read too. December the 5th, 1899, in the State of the Union address to the United States Congress, the International Commission of Arbitration, appointed under the Anglo-Venezuelan Treaty of 1897, rendered an award on October the 3rd, whereby the boundary lines between Venezuela and British Guiana is determined, thus ending a controversy which had existed for the greater part of the century. The decision appears to be equally satisfactory to both parties. It is clear, therefore, that Venezuela not only accepted but celebrated the 1899 award. And then, sometime in 1944, the most junior of lawyers on the Venezuelan team hinted to a set of politicians that he felt that the representative from the United Kingdom and the chair of the judges, the chairman of the judges, who was a Russian, connived to deprive Venezuela of what was rightfully theirs. And guess what? He said it in 1944, and then in 1945 they gave him a national award. And then the guy died in 1949. But before he died, he told them the whereabouts of this letter, and he asked them not to open this letter until he died. So when he died in 1949 and they opened the letter, that became the source document for their argument. That letter has and never had any standing in the court of law, and I'm not a lawyer. That is the only document that Venezuela is trying to build their case on. Huh? It cannot stand in the court of law. It never happened before. The reality is that today, based on the ruling yesterday, and based on the ruling that will come sometime in 2024 or 2025, Nicolas Maduro knows fully well that what is now Guyana will continue to remain as Guyana after that ruling. Nicolas Maduro's big problem right now is that he has a general elections next year. And he has nothing to show to get people to galvanize the Venezuelan population to vote for him. He has nothing good to show. Everything is downhill and keep going downhill for him. Even though they removed the sanctions, even though there's a slight increase in the amount of fuel that is allowed to sell on the world market, it cannot help. This is a country that moved from producing 3.5 million barrels of oil per day to now producing just about 600, which is what we are producing about now, with the last set of oil that is coming on the market, just about 600,000 barrels a day. But he has over 40 million people, and we have just under 1,800,000. So he's looking at us, he's seen improvement over here, and he feels that he could just take his troops, come over the border, and claim the Essequibo, the oil-rich Essequibo. The Essequibo that is also rich in gold, rich in diamond, rich in timber, rich in rare, right? He has his eyes on the Essequibo. But Essequibo belongs to Guyana, and Essequibo will always remain part of Guyana. We will defend Essequibo. Maduro will not have his hands on Essequibo. And even if he wants to be a citizen of Guyana and wants his passport, we will have to decide that. And we're not ready to do that as yet. Let Maduro stay in Venezuela and let him focus on solving the problem in Venezuela. And we know once there's free and fair elections in Venezuela, he will be defeated. And guess what? He knows that too. That is the reason why I had the signing of the agreement in Bridgetown, Barbados, between his government and the opposition in Venezuela. An agreement where he has to commit to free and fair elections in Venezuela. Failing which, they will reimpose the sanctions that were recently lifted. What has happened since then? There's a lady named Ms. Machado. All the opposition parties that were fragmented, disunited, they suddenly, after the agreement, they came together and they elected her as the leader for the combined opposition. Right away, Mr. Maduro tried to say the process that was used to elect her was an illegal process, and he had to be warned. Allow the process to take its course. Remember, we lifted the sanctions, and we're ready to reimpose the sanctions. That is the simple warning we got from the United States of America. You know the United States of America, according to Teddy Roosevelt, said, a president of America many years ago, he said the U.S. must speak with a soft voice, but carry a big stick. Right? So Mr. Maduro heard the soft voice, and is aware that there's a big stick over his head. Not a carrot, a big stick over his head. And he allowed Ms. Machado to be elected, and she's now the opposition leader. Okay, she's not in the House of Assembly, but she's now the opposition leader, who will lead the opposition in the next election. Now look, don't get me wrong. Every Venezuelan, the last generation and the generation before, and the current generation, has it in their heads that Essequibo is zona en reclamación. What Ms. Machado said is that this referendum is a waste of time. Even though she grew up knowing that Essequibo is zona reclamation, she said the referendum is a waste of time. And Venezuela should allow the matter, which is now before the International Court of Justice, to go and remain there, and whenever the court rules, abide by the rule of the court. And that is the honest position. The matter is before the court, and we are ready, and we are waiting the rule of the court. And whenever that court rules, we will abide. by the rule of the court. There's an opportunity come next year for us to submit another memorandum before the court, and there's an opportunity for Venezuela, if they want to submit any future memorandum before the court, they can do that. And the court will welcome all within its statutes, and then the court will have to be given time to pour over all the memoranda placed before it and to rule. We are a peaceful people. We will await patiently the ruling of the International Court of Justice because we believe in the rule of law. But in the meantime, we must be vigilant. We must be united in the defense of Guyana. That is what we ask all the people of Guyana. As a government, we will continue to lead and we continue to impress on a unified approach as we keep our people aware, as we keep our people mobilized, as we keep our people ready to defend what is ours, and at the same time, with respect to the International Court of Justice, await its ruling. So thank you for being with us today. Thank you for expressing unity, and let us remain unified in our approach as we confront what is now known as this threat, this existential threat to our survivability as a state, as a nation. One people, one nation, one destiny. Thank you very much.
And put your hands together again for our Prime Minister. We have heard it. We have heard it. And there is no reason why we should be afraid. Well, you would have heard about Ankoko and Italy Bank and Titan, where our Prime Minister was privileged to serve and defend our country. The history where we were, where we are today, qualified to be our Prime Minister. I'd like to thank all the people coming out and to remind you that tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 8 countrywide throughout Guyana, we will be having our chain. So come out here at the community center, all the groups, the youth groups, the different areas, different parts of Bartica, the riverine areas, pensioners, youths, everybody, miners, businessmen, come out. As Prime Minister would have said, that they're using social media to see what is happening in Guyana. And so when they see that change tomorrow, they will see the unity and strength that we have. So, we remain firm and steadfast and say to Venezuela that Guyana belongs to us and Essequibo is ours. We will not give up a blade of grass. Not a blade of grass.
But when outside faces